Actually, I want to take them away. That's
Ooh.
what I want to do with my performances. I want to take them away for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
let them forget whatever's going on in their life, and just be somewhere else for 5 minutes together, be in this fantasy, be in this world that I made up with my colors, with the vibrations, with that music that I chose.
Can I tell you that? To declare my love. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Creative Frequency. In today's episode, we are exploring the essence of burlesque, common misconceptions when it comes to burlesque, and cultural influences. And joining me today will be Donna Poderosa, a London based burlesque artist who has performed across the UK and internationally, all within the first 3 years of performing. So I'm very excited to have you. Thank you so much for coming. How's life treating you?
I am good. I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
I actually wanted to start with our first, I guess, meetup, which was unplanned. We met, I think it was like at a Netflix like experience,
Yes, yes.
some kind of like erotic like situation. It was so the goodie bag. I love the goodie bags, but it was so nice because we were both in line. Um, I think it was some kind of like experience for a limited series that Netflix was like hosting, and we were both in line trying to see if there was something that we can get out of that experience. And obviously, there was some goodie bags, so which is one of the reasons why I went there. And we started talking as we were in the same queue, and it was such a nice, wholesome moment that we just like stuck together throughout the experience, and then yeah, we stayed in touch afterwards. So it
Yes.
was really nice to like have that to be the initial starting point in a way. So
I honestly, it was so much fun. So much fun. I was so happy that we ended up in that room. It was just so much fun.
yeah, it was really nice. But I guess for those who are unfamiliar with your work, or who is Donna, can you share us a little bit about your journey, like where it started and where you are today?
Absolutely. I have been actively performing for the last 3 years. I started at the beginning of 2022. However, I have been a passive artist for at least 3 years, if not before then.
Okay.
Being a passive artist meant that I didn't know necessarily that I was an artist. But what I did, I basically went to my first burlesque show. And after that, I became obsessed. I started to research it intensively,
Wow.
books, uh, and anything that I could find. I went to one show and found these performers, and I followed all of them, and then it snowballed. So I have been a massive burlesque fan for years now. And when I then started to perform 3 years ago, that research and in-depth process gave me the knowledge and background that I needed to understand what I wanted to do on stage and how I wanted to pursue this for myself.
Yeah. Wow. That's such a crazy journey then, I feel like, from like just being interested in something, going there to experience what it is like, and then now you being the performer that people come for. That's amazing.
I love it. I still can't believe it, to be honest. I last night I did a brunch, and then I jumped on a train and went to Guildford for a show by the
Nice.
100 Watt Club. It was fantastic, and I was just waiting to do my second act in the evening, and I was literally thinking, I'm having so much fun. I cannot believe that
That this is your
this
your
is
job.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is a job exactly,
It's
but
amazing.
I treat it with so much respect because I can see the dedication, the work that so many people put into it. So many people really carve and create their own opportunities, but then they give as well other opportunities to others, because obviously they will just keep building and building and building, and it's just so beautiful to see and watch. But that's also why I felt I wanted to do, before I started to actually do burlesque, I really wanted to understand it. So I went to see burlesque in basements, I went to see burlesque in
Wow.
theaters, I went to see burlesque in clubs, I wanted to see so many different styles, because I really want to understanding. And I think about it now, and I realized that for me it was just more than the art of tease. It was pure self-expression that I was absolutely fascinated with.
Nice.
And that's what it is now for me, just my own way to fully express different versions of me that all are within me.
Yeah.
But with different pieces, I can tap into a different aspect of Donna and connect with a different aspect of my life past experience, or maybe a fantasy.
Yeah.
It's limitless.
I love that, because it's also, I guess, for people to fully be aware and understand what the origin is of burlesque. I guess some people might perceive it as a dance form. Others might see it as a theater or a form of satire.
Yes.
But I guess, just for people listening now, how would you define burlesque to someone who's completely unaware of its origin?
It's a quite difficult question to answer in a way, because I feel that burlesque can be so many things, and the history of burlesque does change a bit depending on like countries and continents a little bit, just because it may be more tied to specific historic events happening. But if I was going to describe to someone who was completely new, unaware, and has no idea about burlesque, I would say that simply burlesque is the art of tease, but I will put emphasis on art, because art is a quite generic term if you want, and I wouldn't want that constrain the definition of how they will see it, because sometimes if you then start to reference a few more things, then it will start to go more about people will start to think about like movies, which are actually so inaccurately given a portrait of burlesque, because for example the movie with Christina Aguilera, you don't necessarily see, or even Moulin Rouge, it's not necessary, it's so far from what the reality of burlesque is. Yeah. And so I'll probably give very little detail, I will say something very, very generic, and then I will take them to a show depending on what inspires them, what excites them.
Yeah. How has it played a personal role in your life?
It's played a huge role in my life. I feel progressively over the last 3 years, I have been gaining the confidence to really put myself first and truly create the life that I want. And I moved to London 15 years ago, and I started to build a life for myself, which I thought was a very 9 to 5 life. And I thought, no problem, I'm just gonna get my degree, finish my education, pay that off, and then get a job, and then work up the ladder in the corporate world. I thought that was it. And I thought, like, that's great. Like, the dream is to just get that money, but I would obviously have that drive, because I just had that dream that you have as, if you come from somewhere that doesn't necessarily have much opportunity and you create the life that you want, you see that very much a life that is filled with job and status that comes from somewhere that actually doesn't give you any fulfillment, when you actually realize actually this is not really nourishing. And then I found out that actually I am an artist, and to create the life that I want, I need to connect with myself, and I need to be on the stage, and I need to be burlesque.
Looking at the performances in the past, but also hearing from other people that have been to your performances, they see a strong influence in your heritage that's like incorporated. Can you share a little bit more what that process is like? Because obviously it's very personal, and you have a mixed heritage. So it makes it very unique as well.
Yes. burlesque has been so important for me for so many things, but it's been my own way of healing a split identity that I've also felt in myself, being biracial, and where I come from has not really been like celebrated. And it's always, I've always felt not one or the other, that I had to like define myself, or that was never enough. With burlesque, I can fully celebrate myself and my identity, regardless of who I am. I can take that narrative back and tell Donna's story in so many shapes and forms, and with different soundtracks, different colors. Although people will say that I do have one color that I use all the time.
Which color is that?
Teal.
Oh, okay.
Look at this.
I love it. I do love it.
I think it's the color of my soul. I don't know how to explain it. And it just really inspires me. And I think it's a color that instinctively fuels my creativity and just grounds me and makes me feel like I'm connecting with like my higher self. I'm connecting with something really deep that I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. You're really in touch with your inner self in that sense.
Yes.
I love that. I love that that color does that for you. It could be even a color that is linked to your aura or something. You never know. That's interesting.
I was looking up some information about like the third eye and things like that, and that is kind of like relating to creativity. I think root chakras are more about red, so red colors. If I need grounding, then I'll feel a bit more connected with that. Or orange is more your sacral area.
Okay.
But yeah, I agree with you.
I'm going to look into that as well. I want to read more about that. In terms of your performances, people say it's very high energy.
Yes.
I still have to witness it, so I'm really excited to like come and actually experience all of this energy. How do you get into that creative process when you're like when you're trying to work on your act? What is that like? Like, especially if it's such high energy, where does it start? You know?
So it starts most often for me. I started with music. I think music has been the first source, the first trigger that has given me an image. And then from that image, the movement has come, the costume will come, and then I will then start to shape the act. But I would say that music has most often been the first, what has inspired me, like a song that I found or a song that I was obsessed with.
Okay.
And then I'll create something around it. And without even fully realizing what the song, what that means. And then with hindsight, after performing the piece for 1 or 2 years, I will actually realize, oh, wow, this is why this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And then I'll connect it maybe with a certain part of my life or something that I felt like I needed to put out.
I guess also when you're performing, audience is such a important element because you bounce off of that energy as well.
Yes.
What is it that you want your audience members to take away, or how do you want them to engage with you, or what? Yeah, I feel like I'm asking multiple questions here.
I get you. Don't worry, I get you.
Yeah, I guess I'll stick to this one. What is it that you want your audience to take away after experiencing your act?
I want to take them away.
Ooh.
That's what I want to do with my performances. I want to take them away for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Let them forget whatever's going on in their life and just be somewhere else for 5 minutes together, be in this fantasy, be in this world that I made up with my colors, with the vibrations, with that music that I chose. I want to take people away, and I want to make them feel joy or whatever the piece is about, inspire. So I want them to feel a lot of emotion, but mostly like joy and celebration. One of my first act was my Welcome to Carnival act, which is a celebration, obviously, like Brazilian carnival culture, and it does that really well. People are like, because they see a costume that is referencing classic burlesque in elements like the corset, which is not worn by carnival dancers, but then has the carnival dancer headpiece, and it will basically mix the two elements. So there's a lot to look at because of the costume, but also because and the costume choices that are made, but also because of the movement. There's a lot of samba, and then there's the after party with twerking. So there's a lot of energy there, but there's also a lot of emotion. There's a lot of joy, and I love to perform the act because it captivates and it takes people away for 5 minutes.
I love this.
I love to entertain. Entertainment is life.
Yeah.
It's what gives us joy.
Yeah. So it's mostly then for people to kind of escape from reality
Yes.
and to be in like almost in a state of ecstasy
Yes.
that you're providing through your act. You're also a co-producer of Scratch Nights.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about Scratch Nights?
Of course, I'd love that. I help out Evelyn, the director and founder of the Soho School of Burlesque, and we produce monthly Scratch Nights for students. The first one of the year is actually today, which I'm really excited about. And the Scratch Nights is just a place for students to practice. So we provide a stage, and once a month people can test out new material, they get pictures, they get a video, which then they can use to send out to producers and get paid work. So it's a very friendly environment when they can practice, have some stage time, or just come and spend time in community. If it's a Sunday evening and you don't have much to do, or you just feel like being with other artists, or you just fancy seeing new work, you can come and just for, I think it's about like £10, and obviously that allows us to cover the costs for the venue. It's I'm really excited about it. I think it's a really nice space for artists to come together. On stage and off stage as well.
So it's very grassroots then. It's
Yes.
like, okay.
Yes. I feel as I progress on my journey, there's different sides. There's the industry professional side, and there's also the community side. And as I have been going through a period of maybe doing a lot of corporate work or a lot of like work at festivals, I actually realized that I do need a balance. I also do need to spend some time in community, see other people's work, and just enjoy art being made for the sake of art.
I love that. I guess also you then get to understand any of the challenges that people are facing when they are starting or when they're trying out their first performances and preparing for that. What are common challenges that you see, like even with students, that you've faced yourself as well, now being a few years into your own career?
I think it is hard to create on your own. It's difficult because in burlesque, when you're creating a piece, you are your own choreographer, you are your own designer, you put together your costume concept, you then obviously maybe ask for some support, try to then to get source the costume in whichever shape or form, but the vision, the image, a lot comes from you. So it's difficult sometimes to just put it all together yourself. And I'm an overthinker, and a lot of people are, and I will start to think about hair. What's the best hair for this? And it's really nice to actually catch up or come across other creatives, and then you see the same challenges, and then you're not on your own as much, and then you have spent some time in the studio, and I show them what I've got, they show them what they've got, and we kind of like exchange, not even feedback, but it's just nice to show what you're working on without the pressure of having it to be 100%, having had achieved that vision. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes years for it to get to a certain level. It obviously depends if it is something that you put together. So my carnival act is just over 3 years old. It's changed so much. Because I want to take it with me, I am changing as an artist, so I need to change elements of that work for it to stay relevant. The moment that story, it's no longer relevant, but it may not be something that gives me pleasure to perform or for any reasons, then I might have to retire it. And it's absolutely fine because the more work will come. But that's kind of what I love. It's a challenge, but also what I love about it, because it's never static. It always changes. A lot of my work has come so many different iterations, and I love all of them, but it's just that version served a purpose. And now we have to change into something else that is more aligned with my growth as an artist, as a dancer, as a mover, but also as a person.
Okay. I guess with misconceptions, burlesque has been stigmatized,
Yes.
but also heavily celebrated, depending on, you know, community and where you are and how people speak about it and their preconceived notions. What are the most common misconceptions that you still hear till this day? And how do you deal with that? Like, how do you address those misconceptions when someone is actually, you know, making such harsh comments about an art form that you just, you know, really love?
I love this question. I think, there's so much we could talk about, but I find that, especially having done some traveling, when people think about burlesque, they will think about burlesque in a specific way. And sometimes they will think about classic burlesque first and foremost. So feather fans, corsets, so very kind of like typical burlesque silhouette. They are probably going to think about a tall, slim, white body. And it's quite difficult if you are not that sometimes to maybe experiment, because if you don't see yourself in a certain space, then you have to fight so hard to carve that space out for yourself there. But yeah, it's a tricky one, but I think things are changing. I don't know if you follow the 21st Century magazine, and every year they publish the top 50 most inspiring artists. And I thought it was absolutely amazing, a good sign of change, that the number one burlesque artist was him to be the most influential for 2024 is Queen Kwan, who was an incredible artist, and I'll definitely recommend looking them up. They are not a tall, white, thin body, and I think it's amazing. And I think they are completely reinventing things or really changing things up. They are such an important artist that makes me feel very hopeful for the future.
Yeah. So there is more diversity then within the burlesque community.
There is change, but there is still so much. We can still be so much better. Yeah, there is change, but at the same time, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of all-white lineup still, which is quite not, or still only one person of color on the lineup. Sometimes it just feels like, well, surely we can do better. I do feel that there's a lot still that can be done. I'm still hopeful, but
I mean, it is hard.
But also keep an eye.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it starts with community. So when we come together and we address the things that we notice that needs to change, and we take, you know, action, I feel like small steps will help towards that, and how people perceive burlesque outside of being the performer. I guess also with artistic challenges, because I feel like my initial perception of, or like my initial interpretation of burlesque is something that is like better than reality. It needs to be euphoric. It needs to be, it takes you away from maybe like a somber space, or like a space where you might feel a bit down. So it can lift you up when you're in those spaces. But I guess looking at your routines, or when you reflect on your own routines, how difficult is it to come up with these performances, acts, work in a way that is still artistic, but addresses maybe some issues that you've been through. How does that come to light in your work? And how difficult is that to even address?
It is quite difficult. I'd say my work has not been very political. There's definitely been things that I want to explore, that I want to do, that are more on that side.
Okay.
But I feel that I think of the audience a lot.
Okay.
And when I put something together, I do think a lot about like the narrative and how an audience will be able to digest that. Not to make sure they're comfortable, but to make sure that what I'm saying is clear, if that makes sense. And then I make peace with the fact that if it is something a little bit more, less, I guess, if it's something quite political and quite a big statement, could be quite hard sometimes for it to get booked. So you kind of make peace with that a little bit. But if if something that you feel strongly about, you do want to tell that story.
Yeah. So finding a balance between, being provocative and also like showing the art itself and like tell the entire story without pushing people away in a way.
Yeah, but I try not to censor me or try to make a more palatable version of me.
Yeah.
Because I do not want to dilute what I want to say.
That makes sense.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
And that will do a disservice to you as an artist and what you're trying to say.
When it comes to burlesque, you mentioned classical burlesque because that's mostly what people think of as their first reference. Are there any traditional elements of burlesque that you want to preserve in your own work when people come to your shows?
I love to make sure that I have a really good, sorry, a little bit, there's so much I'd like to say.
Yeah, take your time.
I enjoy so many, not basic burlesque things, but I love a good glove peel. So there's some things that I do want to like milk. Like last night, I was a cowgirl, but I love doing my glove peel. So things like that, I think I really enjoy to make sure that if I'm definitely be a little bit more on the neo side of things, I will still really have the technique of a glove peel or the tease, obviously, costume manipulation. So there's a lot of elements of burlesque that I try to make sure that I do embed in my work through costume. For example, my carnival act, as mentioned, I do mix the more classic burlesque costume elements, so like the corset with the like obviously like I've got, instead of having like a carnival bra, I have like a burlesque bra, which is more traditional what you'd see on a classic burlesque performer, and the corset. But then I have carnival elements with like the feather tail, the headpiece, the arm jewelry. I do enjoy to mix the two, but I'm excited to tap more into what people would consider more like a classic style, but I like to do it my way.
I like that you mix and match and still honor the origins in that sense, but still have your own, like, your core sauce. That makes sense. your juice is still there. I actually wanted to ask you as well, where do you see burlesque going? Like, what do you think will be the evolution of burlesque?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think I am seeing a lot of very interesting work, and I'm really enjoying seeing how dragon burlesque. I've seen the two sides of the same coin work together a little bit more in the last, I think, like 2 years or so, and I'm really excited about that because we inspire each other. So I am heavily influenced by drag in my makeup. I'm nowhere near that level, but I find that as an inspiration. And I've seen elements of both art forms sometimes kind of like come together, intertwine a little bit, and I find that very beautiful. So I feel there's going to be in the future a lot of room for maybe collaborations between
That'll
the
be
art
really
forms.
cool.
That'll be really fun, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, some really exciting work out there. I think I am so hopeful also because I have seen what Sadie Sinner, the songbird, has created in the last few years. Well, she's been working so hard for like over a decade, but with the Black Burlesque, I think she's created something absolutely incredible. They are going to be, the third term is graduating in at the end of February.
Okay.
And these are new performers of color who have had the opportunity to have a course. I took for granted that the Black Burlesque School existed when I started.
Oh, wow.
And I
okay.
reached out to the Kookaburra Club thinking, hey guys, how do I sign up to your course?
Yeah.
And they were like, there's no course. But I just assumed that that existed. But it was so beautiful when Sadie created it. So I signed up and did that course as well. And that gave me so much. But thanks to quite a lot of change that I've seen and this work that has been done, I can see so much positive change that is actually happening. And I think it's not going to be hopefully as hard to carve out your space as someone who looks different, as someone who can just be.
I love it's so
'Cause you-
strange that
Yeah.
there wasn't a course then when you started.
Well, it's really hard to do.
Okay.
It's really hard to do because of obviously like funding. There's a lot that goes into it. You have like it takes so much work to actually create something like that. It takes obviously like you need not just like the people, the connections, but also like the resources. It's a lot, but the time was right, and I think it was 2023 when the first course started.
Wow.
So I think that is amazing. I think probably one of the most important things that has happened in the last few years.
That's amazing. So there are like significant changes and
Yeah.
like trends and things happening in the space that will definitely propel the burlesque community.
Absolutely, and in the right way.
Okay, I'm really excited to see how this will unfold. But also another thing, I wanted to ask you about your personal growth in terms of how burlesque has impacted you on like on a personal level. So even with relationships or with confidence or how you view yourself. Yeah, how has that impacted you as just a person?
Massively. I think after having been on this journey for 3 years, and I will continue this for the rest of my days, I think. Because I think I can finally see myself. Because generally, regardless of your background or upbringing, you do see yourself through someone's eyes, a parent, a teacher, a friend. I feel this journey has really helped me to remove the veils and start to like see myself. And I'm really enjoying really going inwards. When I create, I will be inspired by a piece of music. I will start to visually think about costume and what would work, what would not work. I will start the creative process, but I will then step away from burlesque and try not to look at burlesque for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I want my authenticity to speak first and to connect with that inspiration.
Yeah.
So that it's just so easy to be inspired. Not easy, but other people will inspire you.
Yeah.
But I think it's very important to actually go inwards and connect with yourself, so you actually bring yourself to the table and you can make a concept, an idea your own.
Yeah.
And you just twist it.
Yeah.
It'll be like, I'll do it like this instead of like that. It's not about doing it differently. It's about doing it yourself, like you would do. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I find it also, since it's such a personal way of expressing yourself, as you said earlier, it's you have to think of all aspects. You're the designer. You come up with the concept. Everything is on you. How does that work out in terms of protecting your work then? Because yes, you get inspired by other people. People, share their work online and you see their shows, and you obviously you go there to support them, and it's nice. But it's also really hard to like come up with something that's completely out of your own depths of your soul, because obviously subconsciously we are affected by everything we see around us. How do you navigate that, and how do you protect your work then? Because I feel like it's almost personal.
Yeah.
Or you then see someone else do maybe a section of something that you've done and you see someone doing that in their piece. I'm like,
Yeah, I agree. I'll feel very like hurt.
Yeah.
I it's quite there's definitely quite. I try to be very careful with what I put online. So when I post on like Instagram, social media, Facebook, I would like put specific bits of my acts. So I may not put the biggest reveals.
Oh, okay.
I will not put like. I want people I want for people to come and see me live.
Yeah.
Because what you see in a 15-second, 30-second reel, it's not going to be what you experience. So I want people to come see me if they hopefully can afford. If they can't afford, and if I can have guest filler, I always put people on guest lists so that they can come and see a show and enjoy the experience of being in the show. But yeah, one thing to do is be really careful what I put on social media. I only share with producers full act videos.
Okay.
But you still never know, right? Because you just never know. I feel that community is when we help each other. If someone sees something that is a little bit too similar, I feel it would. If someone would see someone doing something, and you think of someone else, but not in a good way, then it's a good indication that the community is kind of like alert. So I think community is also good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really about safeguarding.
Yeah,
each other's
yeah,
work.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I'm also quite personal on my artistic process, just because sometimes I'm working it out myself as well.
Yeah.
So I do protect myself by giving my own privacy as well.
Okay.
So I'm not that kind of person who would go and be like, ask me any questions, because I wouldn't answer any questions.
Okay, good mental note for everyone that wants to get into the industry. Mental notes, that's a good one. I guess also, what are your memorable mistakes that you've made throughout your journey so far, that turn out to be like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I made this mistake, but it turned out even to be better than what I initially thought.
I think a mistake. There's probably even quite a few things. Small things like something that didn't plan out on stage, and my brain made a decision that I was like, oh my god, definitely wasn't the right decision. Okay. So there's definitely a few things like this. But I think what I like to share to answer this question is that probably my biggest mistake, which I still make sometimes, is not to let myself have enough fun.
Okay.
Especially if I have worked solidly for a month or more dissecting an act to level it up and put it on a specific stage. I'll put myself under so much pressure. Okay. And then when the performance comes, I have definitely taken that joy away from me. I should have been in a different headspace. I sometimes think too much about what happens on stage, movement, costume, character, but I don't think enough about my headspace. So that's where my mistake have come from, just because what's the point if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying yourself, if you're not feeling connected, if the voice in your head during the performance is actually not a nurturing one, if you're not present, then you're stealing from yourself, basically.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess, would that also be advice that you would give people who are starting? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Have fun. honestly have loads of fun, enjoy yourself, be in community, talk to people, ask for advice. If people don't have time, they'll say, I'm sorry, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Just ask. There's definitely a lot of spaces and people out there who will enjoy having a chat. I really enjoy having chat with people who have been performing for 10 years and people who have been performing for 3 months, and I'll still learn from both.
Okay. Because I guess also, as you are on your journey, you are heavily influenced by other people because of the work that they've done and the work that they are still doing to make sure that it's improving. Is there someone that comes to mind that you think, oh, I see that person as kind of like my mentor because they really have been significant in my artistic development? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God. I need to stop myself from screaming that
Oh.
name. She is Cleopatra.
Ooh.
Oh my
I also
God.
love the name.
When
Okay.
I saw Cleopatra perform for the first time all those years ago, my mind was blown open.
Wow.
And it just never got back together. And she's the kind of performer who, whenever I see her on a stage, I'm like, that's why you're my inspiration.
Wow.
That's why you move me so deeply. Years after years, she disrupts, reinvents, changes things. Yeah. And has given me a lot without even talking to me or being in the room with me, just because I think she means so much to me. Because when I see her online, or I just remind myself of her work, I remind myself of my own fierceness. I remind myself of my own power. Poderosa means powerful. And I remind myself that I need to own that. Because if I don't own that, nobody's going to do that for me. And she reminds me to give myself the kick up the ass that I need sometimes, to be like, get out there,
Meet people like that.
go,
Yeah.
eat it up,
Yeah.
let them have it.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Just go get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Would you say that she's then the starting point in trying to like also finding your creative frequency, you know, tapping into that like flow state in a way?
100%. Yes. Because I think when I saw her work, I was incredibly inspired, but I was inspired to do it my way. That's why she moved me so much, because she really inspired her to find my own voice and tell my story my way, because she's doing it. Like, she's out there with that costume, that movement, just being herself, just turning burlesque on its own head. And I'm like, I'm not gonna change the world or whatever, but I can own that. I can make that my own, and just,
I love that. I love that there are people in our community that can do that for us, you know? Okay, so now that we're coming to an end, I want to ask you one final question.
Yes.
Which is, do you have a piece that you resort to, or it could be a quote, it could be anything, to be honest, that you default to in times of creative hardship, or in times of any hardship?
Absolutely, yeah. I can think of a couple of quotes.
Oh.
One is by Foxy Lexi Brown. Absolutely incredible Canadian performer. I adore her. Honestly, look her up. And we're doing this gig in Birmingham, and it was really fun. But the audience it was not a ticketed event.
Okay.
And the audience, it was Christmas. The audience was very white, straight, and rowdy.
Okay.
I'm talking office Christmas parties kind of territory.
Oh.
It was like, that energy was like, you know, when you feel like a little bit you're being fed to the lions in a certain way. was a bit like,
Ooh, that's scary.
okay, let's go into my thing now. And then she said to me, whatever happens, we will learn.
I like that.
And I was like, and I really took that with me because I'm like, everything went well, it's never as bad as you think it is. Never. But at least for me, my brain will make up such things.
Yeah.
And then it's never as bad as I think it is. It is going to be. But yeah, I always take that with me because if I'm going to a situation, I don't know how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
It's like the unknown, the uncertain. I always think of her because she was like, whatever happens, we will learn from it. She was so cool. And I was like,
Wow.
I think you're right. And it's true. You can apply this to anything in life. But it just puts your headspace into a learning headspace. And you're obviously still a little bit scared, but you're thinking, I'm learning from this.
Yeah.
I can use this for the future or for this. I could use this information.
Yeah. It's a good mindset to have because you're asking the universe or you're asking higher powers, what is this teaching me?
Yeah.
And then you take it on. So I really love that. Actually, I have one final question.
Go for it.
For those who are starting, what advice would you give to them? We've touched on this very briefly as well because you've spoken about it. But what would be the first thing you would say to someone that is like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I've heard this episode. I'm gonna take the step, get into this journey of becoming a burlesque artist.
I would recommend to have a think about intention.
Okay.
And their intention of going into something. This is because it can give you an understanding of the reasons why you're going into something, and then you can better understand how to approach it.
Okay.
And then I'd say go to shows, watch, understand what moves you, what triggers you, what inspires you, and then find your own voice. Okay. Yeah, but I'd say the first step for me would be like intention. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I had the best time.
I was so nervous about today. No need. Thank you so much for coming. And if you want to learn more about Donna's performances or even the work online, make sure to follow Donna on Instagram. Are you on TikTok?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
You can find me on Instagram at Donna__Poderosa. And the same handle is also for TikTok.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much.